Hi, this is Janet Fitch, doing Writing Wednesday on Thursday. I had something going on yesterday, had to postpone, but it is noon on Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern, and I'm Janet Fitch, and that means this is Writing Wednesday-ish, where I answer your writing questions. You can ask me questions about craft, about the writer's life, anything that's on your writerish mind. If you have a question, other people will have the same question. Um, and if you have questions for me in between Writing Wednesdays, send them to me through my website, janetfitchwrites.com, and there's a little contact form and email, and you can let me know what you're thinking about. So today, I'm going to talk about liars, schnooks, and patsies. So these are characters. We're talking about character development around issues of truth, lies, the moral compass, um, and the literature that comes out of these kind of characters and kinds of investigations. Um, and as we go along, I'd love to find out your favorite books that deal with this, and liars and uh, schnooks and tricksters and patsies are wonderful sources. I'm glad that you could come for Writing Wednesday on Thursday. I know it's an unexpected moment. Let's give it a try. So I'll start with liars. Okay. Liars are um, they're maddening in life. Trying to get a grip on them in public life, in private life. They're all kinds of liars, but they have probably the biggest commonality is that generally, they know they are lying. And why do liars lie? They lie to gain advantage. They lie to shift the blame. They lie, sometimes they just enjoy it. They're creative, they're storytellers. They create a story that's better or more advantageous in some way, more fascinating than what actually happens. Um, Liars know they're lying. It's a very interesting psychological state because generally liars know that they're lying, but they also come to believe that it's true. If one has ever gone through a phase of lying, maybe as a child or even recently, you have to keep track of your lies. You have to remember what you told this person, this person, this person, because it's a really good way of getting trapped. Is when you've told one person, something about yourself, and you've told this person something very different, and then, God forbid, they interact. But wonderful stuff for fiction. Um, they they always they often half believe their lies. That's the fantasist part of liars. You can think of it as sometimes some of them are sort of magical thinkers, and we can't imagine who that might be. That they think if it comes out of their mouth that somehow magically it is true. It becomes true. It becomes reality because they said it. And sometimes they even forgot they said it. That just becomes just like, yeah, yeah. There was a John Lovitz character, I think, on Saturday Night Live who was a terrific liar. I forgot the name of the character, who just whatever he said, he'd go like, yeah, that's the ticket, and then started talking as if that was the truth. So they seize on it, and in their minds, what is at first imagined to them becomes real. So they're very effective liars, but it's a wonderful horrific trait in life, but a very interesting trait on the page because you know, we've been there, we've known people like that, we've been people like that, perhaps, and we've been the victim of people like that, or we've been sucked in by people like that. So here we're going to make an order of liars and then schnooks and patsies, and then trickster sort of fits in there in an interesting way. So um, liars are often covering shame. There was a kid in my elementary school. A lot of this goes back, way back, um, who claimed to be, he had a distinctly Ukrainian name, um, and he claimed to be Paul McCartney's cousin. Now, what the hell is that about? You know, I mean, pick the least likely person that is your cousin that you go around the playground saying that you're Paul McCartney's cousin. Um, and he did not realize how blatantly false his statement appears to others. So most liars don't think other people are very intelligent. They tend to feel that you know, they're smarter than the average bear. That's a commonality to liars. Um, Career liars. Hi, Meredith. Good to see you. Paul McCartney. Yeah, his last name was Grushenko. Uh, yeah. Um, so liars think they're smarter than other people. They have maybe a poor opinion of others. Sometimes they want to impress others. Oh, I was accepted to Harvard when they were not accepted to Harvard. They were not accepted anywhere except the school they're going to. But yeah, I could have gone to Princeton. I was accepted, but I decided I wanted to stay on the West Coast. Um, what are they Why are they doing that? Well, they want to impress people. So liars often have a fragile ego. They want to impress people. They want to be in a situation. Yeah, Hope says this is like a psychology lecture. Well, it's when we're dealing with character, it is always, we're talking about human psychology and trying to be as um, sharp in observation as we can be and understanding what it is we're seeing in human behavior. Um, so often they're covering shame. If they feel like everybody's talking about their trip to Europe, and somebody who has not been to Europe will say, "Oh yeah, I just spent all my time in Paris when I was in Europe," and it's like interesting. So they're covering a shame that they have not been anywhere, rather than just simply saying, "God, I can't wait till it's my turn." They're too ashamed to reveal who they are. Um, so liars are often impersonators. They're impersonating the person they want to be without really trying to be that person. Yeah, I've been hang gliding. Well, but they don't go hang gliding. Um, you see that a lot with people. When I live in Colorado, I used to see that all the time of people who would inflate their skiing ability. And as somebody who had to learn to ski because I was living in Colorado, I never really liked it. But I always, tried to, what do they say, under promise, overperform. I always try to say, I'm not that good a skier. And then, turns out, hey, whatever, I can certainly hold my own. But you see these people who, oh yeah, so great, ski the blacks and blah, blah, blah. And they get on the slope and they completely are out of their depth. It's dangerous. They have to get the ski patrol to come get them down off the slope. Um, but that's an interesting person, a person who feels that they have to do that. Uh, you know, um, it's liars generally do have a moral compass. They do know that they're lying until they've done it. And then many people believe that just because it came out of their mouth, and after, 30 seconds, they're believing it just as much as anybody else. That's like the fantasist side of this. A really good liar, can convince themselves that it's true. And we're seeing that every day in our public arena. Um, they choose to override it. They know they're lying as they say it, but they choose to override it because they want to appear a certain way. They want to be thought of a certain way. They want to present a worldview that they would like to be true. So they present it as if it is true. Um, Manipulative. Liars uh, believe that people are stupid and that people want to believe, and they are secretly disdainful of that in others, that gullibility. Um, Liars reframe reality so that what they're doing can feel justified or excusable. And, you can see that so often in public life. Things um, presented as they would like them to be, and not really, can't stand the judgment that it is not true. It's everything is relative. You know, if I say it's true, or it could be true, or if we knew more, we would know that it's true. Meredith says it's interesting when liars are questioned, they have to double down on the lie and get more defensive. Yeah, that's true. They they just they especially very charming people. They're extremely charming until they're pinned down, and then they can get downright vicious. It's like the mask drops and they're a cornered animal and they will just lash out with everything they've got. Yeah. Or they get more defensive and lie more. So they reframe reality so what they might feel is justified or excusable. You know, that maybe they weren't in prison for 8 years, maybe they were in jail for 3 hours. But if they're trying to justify, something they did, then they will reframe the reason, the intensity of the provocation. Oh, he had a gun. Well, no, he didn't have a gun. He had a candy bar. You just shot him. you know. Um, so well-known liars in history. I mean, well-known liars in fiction. So, and feel free to add your own here. Um, well, Tom Ripley, the talented Mr. Ripley, is a completely hollow person, and he sees the person he would like to appear to be, the life he would like to have, and creates out of lies, creates a persona that would fit into that world, and then he becomes extremely dangerous when his lies are in danger of being revealed. Um, and so many a crime book has been based on a liar who will fight to preserve his lie. Um, let's see. Rick Pym, the father in The Perfect Spy. Magnus Pym is the perfect spy. He was a kid whose father was a con man, and he was on his father's side, and he loved his father. And his father was a good guy, unless he took you to the bank. He took you for a bath. Um, Rick Pym, he was the guy everybody loved, but he was a complete liar, complete con man. And he's a wonderful character based on uh, John le Carre's father. It's the most autobiographical work, A Perfect Spy. Highly recommend it. And Rick Pym is what a piece of work. Um, Humbert is the kind of liar who will um, reframe. He's reframing what he's doing so that it is not criminal intent. It's just pesky laws about, protecting minors, a pesky, thing. Um, so he reframes, and that's a really interesting choice when you're writing a liar. Is that somebody just reframes things? Yeah, Humbert from Lolita. Um, there, every femme fatale in every book, in every movie, is a liar. Lies are how they go, and they're manipulating men usually to do the crimes that they don't want to do directly, don't want to or can't, but usually uh, don't want to dirty, their own hands. They get some sucker, and they just snow them with lies. Uh, I'm desperate, Maltese Falcon, I'm desperate, people are after me, and they just keep changing their story, changing their story, changing their story. Um, so, which, brings up the dance partner. The patsy is the dance partner of the liar. The patsy wants to believe for a number of reasons. So the patsy um, is they want to believe. They do not. It's like they don't approach the bars. They don't touch the wire. They don't want to know what's really out there. So you see women who are with men who a more suspicious person would have every red flag in the world, but they are so enamored. Anybody had a friend like this? Anybody been like this? You're so enamored of that person that you don't poke around behind the curtain. Um, and a patsy can go two ways. A patsy can either, just like the liar doubles down, Meredith was saying, the liar doubles down when questioned. Patsy can double down if, you know, your guru has been caught with the hand in the till, the husband who's been molesting your child. Um, there are a lot of different kinds of patsies. Your husband has been cheating, after all. Um, there are two ways that a character who is the patsy can go. They can either choose to open their eyes and realize what has happened and about face and cope directly with the situation, or they can close their eyes and double down. And so that's an interesting dance. People who have been conned, especially the romantic con man, who sweeps some older gal off her feet and then steals her blind. I mean, she'll still be excusing him. She'll still be saying why, he didn't mean it. He was at a shortfall, Oh, I'm happy to let him have it. He's given me such a good time. It was excuse. You know, I see, but I refuse to see. All kinds of collaborators, in fiction. Um, so um, I was looking at, say, the liar Patsy relationship. You know, lots of noir. Every femme fatale has a Patsy, um, somebody who would overlook all kinds of stuff for that charge. Um, the father in the Brothers Karamazov is a complete liar, um, and causes such damage, and thinks it's funny. He's a real sociopath too. Um, Kathy in East of Eden um, actively deceives everyone, and Adam, the father, is her patsy, although he's not a patsy in general. But upright people can really be patsies. They do not notice the things the reader notices. See, you have to show a liar. It's pretty easy. You have their story, and then the reader sees what is going on. But whoever they've chosen to be their patsy, that person does not see the things the reader sees, and they're often things they should see. If they were at all suspicious, they would see it, but they have a stake in not seeing it. So in Shakespeare, Othello is a patsy to Iago. Macbeth is patsy to Lady Macbeth. Shakespeare, there's a lot of patsies. Um, Jason in The Sound and the Fury is such a liar. He's so awful. And then Dilsey, who is the family servant and historian, really, too, has the last chapter of The Sound of the Fury, and she has seen it. She has seen it all. She knows what really went down. And so we despise this guy so much, but he is internally consistent in his lies. His worldview is very strong, and he sees it the way he sees it. Um, let's see, who else of the Alden Pyle in The Quiet American is a lot of Graham Greene, like a lot of crime, a lot of noir, and Greene, especially the liars in Greene. So Pym uh, is somebody, an American in Vietnam, who claims he is an aid worker, but he's actually CIA. And he is Fowler, who is our point of view character, Brit. Um, he is suspicious, but he allows himself to be the patsy for various reasons. He allows himself to let this guy into his life. And of course, he proves to be a disaster and a terrible liar. Um, let's see. So, crime fiction. Todd Goldberg has a mafia hitman who becomes a rabbi as a cover. So that's wonderful fiction writing. I mean, liars are fantastic if you can use them in your fiction. The vacuum cleaner diagrams in Our Man in Havana, yes, so more Greene. Greene really always works that moral line. Um, Breaking Bad, Walter White in Breaking Bad is lying to everybody. He's terrified of being exposed. They Then there's a character who I call the Schnook. So there's the liar who knows that he's lying. He has a moral compass and he chooses to ignore it, creates his own reality. There's the patsy who's turning a blind eye to things that they should be looking at and often goes into denial when they have to see what it is that's going on. They allow it. They close their eyes. The old Bolsheviks in Darkness at Noon um, are being eliminated because uh, they're a threat to the Communist Party because they have moral weight. They know how they got there, and they see the lies, but they're trapped. They don't feel. They're in a dilemma. Is if they point out the lies of the party, they are undermining the very revolution that they gave their lives to implement. And the hero is in prison and probably going to be executed, and he still cannot disrupt that system. So he's like the ultimate patsy. Um, the schnook are people. The liar is often a bold character. He is recreating the world as he wants it. The schnook kind of works around the edges of things. Um, they're trying to slant something, they're shifting the blame. They're like the corporate yes men, or political yes men. Their timidity is um, their timidity and their conformity, uh, to my mind, is that's the Schnook's biggest trait, is they're weaselly. They're just trying to get away with something. They're just trying to not rock the boat. They're working the edges. They're working the angles. They tend to cover their ass. They're um, they're shirking their role. They're inflating their role. They're trying to gain advantage. But they're weaselly rather than bold. They tend to be frightened people, and they're keeping their head down. They're looking for safety. Um, the schnook has no moral compass. They're kind of a hollow uh, person. Um, and as liars, they're, the lie isn't the grand creation that it is for the true liar. It's not a work of art. It's just trying to do what they want to do and get away with a little something. Um, trying to avoid the moral compass. Miranda July sometimes has characters, like All Fours has a character who's lying all the time, but she's a fantasist, and she's creating a world, just kind of lying to her family, and but often there is somebody that they're telling the truth to, as she does in All Fours. She does have a friend who she does tell the truth to. Small time criminals in Elmore Leonard will be schnooks. They're lying, but they're just trying to stay out of trouble. There's always a bigger criminal who's gonna kill them if they step out of line, or can be seen as stepping out of line. So they're just covering their asses. So they're very interesting, the schnooks. Uh, Andrew pointed out that George Saunders, all of his characters are schnooks in short stories: Pastoralia, Civil War Land, In Bad Decline, 10th of December. They're taking it from the boss. They have abusive family members. They're overcome by fear of sticking out, of falling behind, and they're eventually the moral dilemma um, arises, and they really do have to make a choice. They have to notice that there is a moral issue involved. Uh, Stone stories, all of those people, schnooks, they're not lying to create a grand vision. They are simply want to be left alone. They're lying. It's kind of pathetic, but they're not free from blame. They're involved with it. There's a wonderful book called Dear Committee Members, um, where somebody is. It's like writing letters. It's very Nabokovian. He's writing letters to, like, people are asking for recommendations. He's a professor who, and I love a good professorial novel. He's writing recommendation letters, but he's writing them such that nobody would ever accept the person that he's recommending. So he's undercutting them while he's recommending them. It's a very interesting novel. Um, let's see. Uh, and then the Patsies, so they are in the service of the liars. So Patsies, for instance, the film Double Indemnity, um, is a femme fatale, Barbara Stanwyck, who's using Fred McMurray as her patsy. Um, they're common in crime fiction. In The Maltese Falcon, Mary Astor character, a huge liar and just scared of and greedy, and using this detective as her patsy. But because he's a detective, he eventually, even though he's a is a patsy, he's hot for her, that eventually his moral compass, his skills, his trade overcome his willingness to be the sacrificial victim of this woman. I'm watching a TV show now called Line of Duty, where there is a powerful police detective who proves to be a patsy, and he's just overwhelmed by anger, and he's caught because he has allowed himself to be a patsy. Many mothers in fiction, and fathers too, um, are patsies to criminal children who are lying to them. And they're, they sort of know that something isn't right in Toontown, but they don't want to deal with it. So they lie to themselves. They didn't see that. Oh, that was somebody else's drugs. That was, blah, blah, blah. Um, you know, why is the car in the ditch? Um, and they choose to lie to themselves, and some of them will reverse and at some point refuse to take it anymore, and then sometimes they double down. So Hope says remains of the day. There was a lot of dishonesty in that book about feelings and Nazis. Yeah, yeah. Um, and then sometimes the characters, the patsy to themselves. The notes from the underground. He says, "I am a weak man. I am a liar." He lies to himself. He inflates himself, and then he deflates himself, and that's an interesting internal dynamic. A lot of mothers, a lot of lovers, the kid who could do no wrong, um, the person who's willing, hold this box for me, some stranger says, and then they do it. It's like, Patsy. So, what are your favorite books? And then there's the trickster, who is it's a positive spin on the liar. Odysseus um, in the Odyssey is a trickster. He lies all the time. What's your name? No man. You know, but it's seen as wily and for a for a cause or for a we like that person. We want them to succeed. And they're not strong, and they're not going to do hand to hand combat. Um, they have to use their smarts and be willing to make up a story. Jason Bourne, Hope says, yeah, he'll lie. Most thrillers have heroes who are willing to do that. Um, the girls who believe the boys, you know, Patsy, um, he said he loved me. He said we were going to get married. He said blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, she gets caught up in the crime. And then sometimes it's a femme fatale guy situation, the same thing. Um, let's see. Guru follower relationships, Patsy, liar, and Patsy. And then mid level people, Schnooks, who are just trying to cover ass. Um, let's see, what else do we see? Um, so the trickster. Okay, so this is a mythical character. A lot of guru protectors out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fascinating. That relationship and the manipulation uh, that that they go through. Um, there's a wonderful film about the Source family, and I have the book too. And the book was written by a woman named Isis Aquarian. Everybody had the last name Aquarian in the Source cult. And she is crazy about the guru, Father Yod. Um, and he has there are a lot of women and a lot of girls, and she's not his favorite. Let's say he's taking care of the needs of a number of female adherents, and but he puts her in charge of, she becomes the archivist. And she's also in charge of the mother house, and she also does the accounting. And he sees somebody he can use, a workhorse, but he's got to keep her on the string, right? Oh, you're so valuable, you're so important to me, you're the most important of all of them because I'm trusting you to whereas in fact, no, he's not crazy about her at all. But she's very useful, and you'll see a lot of that in Crime Guru. I mean, you see it in life. The tricksters like Coyote, the Coyote figure, Crow in Inuit, Loki, um, they like to put a monkey wrench into human life and test people and put them into situations that they wouldn't have been in otherwise, just to see what it's like they're the disruptors. And in many cultures, that is seen as a helpful character. Eventually, once you dig yourself out of the mess that they've put you in, you have learned things that you wouldn't have learned if you'd stayed home. Um, let's see. Um, so talking about liars, Great Gatsby, everybody is a liar in that thing, except for Nick Carraway, the point of view character. Nick, who is a patsy of all of them until he opens his eyes and does not fall back asleep. He is somebody who turns around. Once he has really gotten the message, he acts on it and he sees what has been going on. Um, so that's a patsy who wakes up. Um, what else? What favorite books do you have that have liars? Harry Lime in The Third Man. So here I am, green, green, green. It's green, green, it's green, they say. I love Graham Greene. I love John le Carre, because they really get this dynamic, and it is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Um, and so liars in fiction, it's really interesting to have liars because we're allowed to see inside their heads if you want to. So the difference between what people say and what they're thinking is very interesting. So even people whose character is not a liar per se, but are lying, um, it's very easy to handle that in fiction, and really interesting because we know what they're thinking. They meet the new mother-in-law. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. God, I have to spend 3 hours in a car with this person. Um, it makes a 3D dynamic. So a conventional person lying is an opportunity to triangulate how they are in the world versus how they are in their heads. Um, what the There's a difference between people who are lying, but the reader believes along with the other characters. We believe what they're saying, and then later they're revealed to be lying. Versus these are colors on your palette. This is not like one or the other. Um, these are choices that you can make. So you can have the character saying something that we've already seen how it actually happened, and then we hear their story to another character maybe about what happened, and we're going, oh my god, this guy is fucking lying. You can see it, so you can either let the reader in on it, or you can present it later, or you can drop clues so the reader starts putting it together, starts being a little more suspicious. Um, the Patsy character can be either believe something that the reader would go, no, that person is unreliable, or we can start being like, that's a little red flaggy, isn't it? I don't know. I like their love affair, but I don't know about Joe, you know. Um, so Meredith says, Hope says Big Fish was all about the father being a liar. That's really interesting. Um, and then Meredith says, I recently read a newer book where the lead is a pathological liar. I was really into the book until the POV changed to the other two characters. The POV of the liar was way more intriguing. What was that? What book was that? Um, isn't that interesting? Yeah, the liars are very interesting characters. Count my lies. Well, there you go. Sign me up. Uh, the femme fatale, I always like the femme fatale. Um, people who have then there's like the gray area, because everybody has their point of view, where they have always told themselves a story that goes a certain way. And then new evidence emerges to show, oh, you know what, I've always told that story, but that's not what happened. That's a real, I have incidents like that in the book that I'm writing, because I think it's so interesting in life when something you've always believed is true turns out to be completely different. Um, it's a shocker. And then you look back and you think about, the character can look back and start thinking, oh, that my sister, you know, uh, oh, that she was my mother and my grandmother. The woman I thought was my mother was my grandmother. And then play off of that. That's a really interesting type of story. Family lies. Family lies are really good in fiction. It's not what we want in our lives. Um, but yeah, in crime fiction, but even in straight fiction, to have a liar, it's just tools. And a good person can have those tools as well. You know, you see a kid being forced to the wall by, an overbearing parent where they might normally have told the truth, but the way they're being interrogated, they are forced to lie. And that can be the birth of a liar, because these children they lie to defend themselves. There's nobody they're going to be punished if they tell the truth, which is how you train a liar, is you punish people for the truth. Um, let's see, what other Patsies? There's a book by um, Lauren Groff called Fates and Furies that is a he said, she said book, where the first half of the book, it doesn't go back and forth, first half of the book is the husband's point of view of events. And then the second half is the wife's point of view of events. And it's clear that, no spoiler, maybe, it's clear that the wife is a liar and the husband is a patsy. He thinks he's the hero of the story, which is really interesting, and comments on gender relationships. Meredith says Liz Nugent's Lying in Wait has a great patsy. Yeah. Body Heat. I mean, all the noirs. It's just patsy, patsy, patsy. Um, one of my favorite Richard Ford novels is a novel that is not his big novels. It's called the Ultimate Good Luck. I love that book, and it's an ex-husband who is still in love with his ex-wife, and she asks him to go to Mexico to get her hapless brother out of jail. And because he's still in love with her, there's a classic femme fatale story, and it doesn't go very well. Gone Girl. There you go. Yeah, you know, crime thrillers, spy novels um, have their liars. Gollum, in fantasy. Um, and it really offers a lot of opportunity for character development in straight fiction. Uh, I highly recommend even using it on characters who are otherwise reliable. You know, force them to tell a lie, or have somebody tell them a lie, and then how do they respond to it? Um, so anyway, we've reached the end of our Writing Wednesday, and I urge you to check out some of these books and think about people who want to believe. And why do they want to believe a liar? Why do they override their what would be normal suspicion? Um, yeah, very interesting. Okay, well, I wish you good writing, and I'll be here next Wednesday for Writing Wednesday on Wednesday. And please, in the meantime, send me questions. I would love to base a Writing Wednesday on your question. All righty, thank you. Okay, bye.